And we're joined by really one of the great voices and writers and minds when it comes to what is actually going on in our world around us, both here in the United States and abroad. And we welcome in Dr. Daniel Pipes, founder and director of the Middle East Forum. Daniel, great to speak to you again, sir.
Good to talk to you, Steve.
All right, I have a question before we get to Egypt and other issues. Are you aware of the controversy today surrounding Rolling Stone magazine? We're going to put it up on our screen for those watching at Newsmax.com, Newsmax TV. Rolling Stone magazine has done a rock star treatment of the Boston Marathon bomber, giving him a full front page cover story with a glossy picture and the whole thing. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't. I heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
What's your take on that? I mean, once Piers Morgan weighs in on Twitter and says it's a journalistically speaking, it's a must-read, a very urgently needed piece that was written in Rolling Stone. Right away, I know it's bad, but I don't need Piers Morgan to tell me there's something really twisted and sick about that.
Yeah, there is. Well, in the immediate aftermath of his being apprehended, because he's a handsome young man, there was this flurry of kind of female reaction, nice-looking guy, and this shouldn't be happening to him. And then came the leftist reaction that, wait a minute, he's a victim, he's not a perpetrator. And I think this is a combination of those two urges.
Right, he was led astray, he was a follower with his brother, he didn't know what he was doing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's, at least the picture we've all seen repeatedly of him is a very handsome one, is a significant role here. For example, there was a parallel over a decade ago in 2002 with the Beltway snipers. It was an older man and a younger man, and clearly the younger man was influenced, but they weren't brothers, influenced by the older man, but there wasn't a surge of sympathy for him as there was for the younger Tsarnaev brother.
Right, and I think of what's going on in the media today that we've been covering almost ad nauseum here on this show, and George Zimmerman has to go into hiding if any magazine dared to put George Zimmerman on the cover in any glorifying way of glorifying him, and yet we have a terrorist murderer, an Islamic terrorist murderer who killed 3 people and maimed many more, and he gets on a cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and I haven't heard boo about it from the mainstream media. Certainly not complaining about it.
It's a good comparison, yeah. It's a telling one.
All right, well, let's move on to Egypt if we can, Daniel. And, I've read your pieces recently about what's going on there, and we seem to be at least a media lull of sorts where we're just, I guess, treading water right now. But where do you think we're headed? I saw this administration just the other day, maybe yesterday, I forget, not surprisingly in my mind, and I'm sure not surprising to you, issue a statement that if Egypt's going to move ahead with democracy and democratic elections, the Muslim Brotherhood must be included. It seems like they're still in a state of shock in the White House and the State Department that their beloved Muslim Brotherhood suffered the defeat it suffered.
And there's also this obsession with democracy, with process. Now, democracy is important, but there are times when democracy is not the most important thing. And when you have what is arguably the world's largest political demonstration ever, anywhere, take place, you don't focus on democracy so much. Furthermore, I would argue, and I'm in a very small minority here, but I would argue that Morsi was not properly elected, that it was fraud, that it took a week between the election back a year ago and his being announced to have 51.5% of the vote. It's an intricate subject. I won't go into it here, but I've never accepted, not at the time and not now, that he actually won this election. I think the whole political process, the whole voting process in Egypt in 2011 and 12 was fraught with problems. So even putting that aside, even if he were properly elected, at a certain point, you are dealing with a government that is inept, that is hostile, that is enormously unpopular, and you have to pay attention to the larger issues, which the White House, State Department refused to do.
Well, yeah, and and further than that, we heard from John Brennan years gone by that the Muslim Brotherhood is a peaceful organization. They're no threat to anybody in Egypt specifically. I think he was talking about, and we could go into the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood and their offshoots here in this government. But that, as you say, it might be for another time, as you alluded to with a different topic. But let's talk about going forward. I mean, we're hearing all kinds of horrific stories about what's happening to the Copts now from supporters of Morsi and from the Muslim Brotherhood. They're under attack, as they were, under Morsi, and at least under Mubarak, although they weren't treated well. And you could say this about a lot of things under Mubarak. I think Mubarak met our national security needs and Israel's national security needs and the needs to a larger extent of the minority community of Copts in Egypt so much better than Morsi, certainly, in what's going on now. And where do you think, how do you think it'll play out in the future?
Well, before we get to the future, let me just respond to your assessment of Mubarak. I completely agree with you that Mubarak, or now Sisi, or between them, Tantawi, the military rulers, are better than the Muslim Brotherhood. I agree with that entirely. That is not to say that one should value them or evaluate them positively. From the Coptic point of view, Mubarak was a misery. From Israel's point of view, Mubarak was a misery. And from any other point of view, from an economic point of view, he was miserable. There's really nothing good to be said about Mubarak except that he's better than the Brotherhood. I don't think we should make this into glorify him.
No. And let me make clear, I'm in no way glorifying a ruthless dictator, but I just think that as compared to what we got and what the administration, our administration, probably knew we would get somehow, I just think that they would have been better off in the interest of the United States, and that's who we're supposed to be governing for when you're governing in this country. It might have been better to leave Mubarak alone. I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion.
Short term, but long term, there had to be something that like what took place. There had to be a popular rebellion against a ruthless autocracy at a certain point. Egypt had been ruled for nearly 60 years by military dictators, and something near burst. And we can still have hope that a better system will emerge than what was under and Mubarak. It was miserable. Let's not romanticize it. It was miserable. I could go on.
Right.
I could go on and on about how miserable it was. But yes, this Muslim Brotherhood is worse. Now, turning to the future, I have too much to say about it. It is clear in the aftermath. It's only 2 weeks exactly since Morsi was overthrown. So it's not much time. It's clear that the Muslim Brotherhood is not going gently into the night, that it is use its formidable organizational skill to make trouble, to resist, to create traffic jams, to use violence, to try to take over control of the peninsula, and who knows what else they're about to do. But how far will they go? Will they really go for a full-scale civil insurrection? There, I don't have much to say. I don't know. I don't have an understanding of the ship's thinking, and they could pull back.
Okay. No. Yeah. Well. Okay. We're unfortunately the cell phone's dropping out a little bit, but always good to talk to you, Daniel, and I appreciate it. And we could read you at danielpipes.org as well as at the Middle East Forum. Correct?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel.